Good morning and welcome. It is Friday, baby. Yeah, we made it. You know what? I'll be honest. I thought maybe it was April Fools, but no, it's only February, so it can't be April Fools. What a way to end the week. We have a huge pullback in gold and silver, a great buying opportunity for sure. But we got government jobs numbers that even the people on TV, the stock cheerleader people, right? They love everything. They love all of these reports, even if it doesn't really report what they say. They love them. Even they couldn't believe it. It was absolutely incredible. We'll give details, but Jason, before I give the number, I need you may have to pull over, maybe sit down, be ready, because remember we were looking for a number around 200,000. That was, and I think the estimate from the TV people was 187. We got something that, I mean, honestly, I don't even know what to say. That's how big of a number that came out of the government. And before I share it with everybody out there, Jason, this is why you never know, right? From one day to the next, everything can change on a dime.
And then these are the numbers from December. Is that right?
No, this is a January. This
January
is
number.
January
Okay.
jobs.
January job
And
number.
of course,
Okay.
we all know, right? Everybody hires people in January. No, right? It was interesting. I got to give you the number. I have to 517,000 jobs. That's what the Bureau of Labor Statistics said. It was very interesting. Social media was blowing up. Somebody on Twitter, and I don't know that this is accurate or not, but Zero Hedge, who I've got to listen, I think Zero Hedge is outstanding. So I put a lot of credibility in what they said. But they were out and that they said that it's not the January's payroll report. It's the January seasonal adjustment report. And apparently the government has made a big swing in seasonal adjustments. And they're saying that a record 2.5 million seasonally adjusted factors were made. That was the biggest in history to get this number. So again, that's where, we have the headline number and then you got, we kind of got there in a weird way.
Well, if there's any truth in the number, Joe, I mean, you could kind of try to figure out why so many people were being hired in January. I mean, we talked many times about credit cards being loaded to the hilt last year. And so I could see a lot of people like, hey, well, let's get through Christmas, and then I'll just get another job and pay off all those credit cards. I mean, that's what it's starting to feel like, isn't it?
Why are we adjusting 3 million jobs? I don't know. Right? That really is the question. But another tweet was apparently we're getting a mass layoff announcement about every 45 minutes. But according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that translated into record jobs. So there you go. There you have it. That's why we've got a pullback. Listen, gold is down $45. Take advantage of it here. 800-951-0592. allamericangold.com is the website. I did make a small buy this morning. I'm going to throw it out there right now. I've got 17 $20 gold pieces. I don't even know what they are. They could be libs. They could be safes. It doesn't matter. 2,095 on those 17. After that, 21.45. So it's a $50 off. Take advantage. Buy the dips from the dips, Jason. But that number, that's all anybody could talk about. It was funny watching them trying to keep a straight face when they were reporting the numbers. They had one guy, they have the CNBC, I call it the boxes. They had like 8 guys, and they're all going to give you their expert opinions. And of course, all of them were asked, well, how many jobs are going to be created? No one had anywhere near this number. So it tells you what their expert opinions are worth. But even some of them, one guy just flat out said, this is a bunch of nonsense. I mean, that was literally, that wasn't his exact quote, but that's what he essentially was saying. Interesting.
If you put aside the 3 million adjusted, is how big is that 2 million number without the adjusted amount? Is that still considered a big number?
And I don't know. So, I mean, my public school education says, well, take 517,000 less 3 million. We lost 2.5 million jobs. But I think and again, here's the problem with the data that they're making available to me right now. I think that 3 million included adjustments to November, December, and January. So I don't know that that's quite apples to apples.
Well, man, I mean, like I said, Joe, people need jobs. They need that second and third job just to pay things. So if they're going to add 3 months of additional jobs, if there's still jobs to be had, because it wasn't too long ago where there was still a lot of help wanted signs out there. So it makes you wonder how.
And again, we've said it here. I'm not seeing this, everybody firing everybody, but this number definitely an outlier. But hey, you know what? I love it. Being able to buy gold and silver for less, even better. By the way, all silver down today as well. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour. As I said, we had those gold pieces, 2,095. We had 17 of them, and then after that, 2145. But pick up those for sure. Silver, just really quickly. Case of U.S. Silver Eagles down to 17,250. Rolls of Silver Eagles at 700. Dimes, $170.50. Quarters at $2.15. $half at $2.35. As silver's down $1, gold's down 45. The Dow is pretty flat. It was down early. It's rallied back here a little bit. We got a mixed market. The S&P is negative. The Dow and the Nasdaq are higher. Oil's higher. The bonds, the 10-year note, man, you think about yesterday, we were at like 334, 352 this morning. Still way below where it should be, but that's how big the number was today. And remember, this market recap brought to you by our friends at YRefi, right, man? Listen, this is why you don't want to be in these markets, because these stuff, it's idiotic. They make no sense. And you're supposed to somehow invest in that kind of environment. That's why you got to have Joey on your team. That's why you got to have your gold and silver put away. That's why you got to use somebody like YRefi, up to 10.25% annualized guaranteed. It doesn't matter. That number could have been 2.5 million. It could have been negative 500,000. It just doesn't matter. Invest. YRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or 888 YRefi with a Y, YRefi 24, 888 YRefi 24. And Jason, you brought up credit cards, so we got to talk about it. We got that data out today. Do you know that credit card balance is now up 20% in a single year? So think about 2022. And really, the sad part about it, most of this 20% had gotten added on in the last 90 days. So the average balance now, they're saying that if you make the minimum payments, and the average balance, $5,805 again, up 20%. It would take 17 years to pay off a credit card with the average balance right now. Interest rates on credit cards now over 20%. But 17 years. Listen, when you help people, when you invest with Y-Refi, the average payoff on these student loans, and I'm telling you right now, a whole lot more than $5,800. They get it done in about 8.5 years, Jason. These guys are like, hey, you're making the minimum payment on your credit card. It's going to take you 17 years to pay it off. And not to mention all the interest. You're going to be paid almost double what you owe just in interest.
There is no situation in my mind when someone makes the minimum payment to have it paid off in 17 years that it will actually get paid off in 17 years. That's a lot of years for the person making the minimum payment to try to actually get that done. That person is going to have some other thing happen, and then those credit card balances get bigger, and the years to pay it off goes out farther and farther. I mean, it's one of those traps. That's what the debt trap, Joe, that I've always tried to keep myself out of, and always try to get other people to stay out of it. Getting the credit card debt is so bad. It's abysmal. It's a trap, and unfortunately, it's for a lot of people they find that as their only option to catch up on things, Joe. And it's unfortunate. And to hear credit card, it was a year over year 20%. I mean, I can't believe people were charging their credit cards a year ago, because they were just coming off all that free money at the end of 2021 and went into 2022. But now it doesn't make it's not surprising to see those credit card balances going up. I see the record high in credit card debt going up even further, Joe.
Yeah, well, and again, remember, these are numbers through December. So it'll be interesting to see what January's number. And again, it's another one, just doesn't jive with that number that we saw today. And it really is. I think all of these things are a mess right now. They've just COVID, I think, threw everything out of whack. And now all these seasonal adjustments are really I don't think apples to apples, because remember, we heard from Amazon and Walmart and Target and UPS and FedEx, right? And they all said, hey, listen, we're not hiring nearly as many people this winter. And then to come up with these outrageous numbers. Again, I don't know. What do I know? Hey, the unemployment rate down to a 3.4%. Jason, that's like the lowest number since like the 60s. I mean, it's crazy.
With all that employment, there should be less debt. Less credit cards.
Right.
Right.
Oh, man.
Let's face it. If the media would actually put as much attention onto the record credit card debt levels as they did COVID, everyone would be freaking out right now, Joe. Can you imagine if they put that kind of attention on this much debt? How people would be freaking out if they actually paid attention to it.
Yeah, we just also got an update on the Fed's balance sheet. And again, Jason, they continue to sell off a lot less than they told us they were going to on this quantitative tightening. 74 billion, well below the number. They're now saying that their balance sheet is at $8.43 trillion. Losses starting to pile up now. So right now, the Treasury or the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve, all of these bond sales, they're losing money. And it's really simple because the yields have gone up. And so they're selling at a loss. But you know what? Here's the great thing about our private central bank. They just they've lost now $27 billion. But that's just, don't worry, that's just a journal entry. Now, the sad part is, for years, the Fed was making money on these purchases and remitting them to the Treasury. That's the rule. So 2 years ago, as an example, 2021, they remitted $120 billion. A lot of money. You got to lower the debt by that amount. This year, they had remitted $78 billion through the first 3 quarters. But then, Jason, they started losing money in the fourth quarter. The money losses now continue. They don't believe they'll have any remittance whatsoever in 2023. And on top of that, they'll just have a journal entry loss. And right now, it looks like, depending on how they keep this pace up, they're going to have a loss somewhere in the 80 to $100 billion range.
Yeah, I just despise the central bank because they don't have losses. There's no losses there, Joe. We know better. You know what I saw yesterday? You'll love this. I saw a letter from the Fed in 1918. It just newly released. I don't know where this. It came over a Twitter feed, and a couple of guys I was looking at last night. It's an official letter, and it talked about their gold confiscation in 1918. 1918, they were talking about how much gold they had already sucked out of the system, the gold certificates and the gold, and their plans on what they were going to be doing 15 years before the gold confiscation, Joe. It's eerie when you have some of the words that are in this letter talk about what they're going to be doing and how the government, and us, we really need the gold to be in our reserves. It does us better than it does the citizens. The citizens don't need it, Joe.
Right.
The government,
they don't need it. We don't need it. You don't need no stinking gold. It is really it's an interesting Friday. That is for sure. Yesterday we talked about the billionaire. At the time, I want to say he was the third richest guy in the world. And the fallout there, Citigroup has now followed suit, saying that they will no longer allow any bonds from any of his companies, which this guy's so big. He's over 10% of the Indian stock market. All of that collateral will no longer be accepted at Citigroup as well. So, Jason, kind of an interesting happening. I know we're all focused on the jobs thing and all that, but very interesting development. If this contagion starts to spread here, how many others, and I think there's a lot of these companies that are highly leveraged, and all of a sudden you get a little skittish on one. Next thing you know, you get skittish on all of them.
Yeah, I think that will. Whoa, excuse me. I don't know what that was. I think that'll continue, Joe. I think you'll see more of it. I mean, it's on the path that it's on, and so let's keep on watching it, Joe, because you bring it in every day masterfully about these numbers, and I can't believe it. It used to be, Joe. I would say this: when I first joined in 2018, which basically 5 years ago. Sometimes you'd come out, there'd be certain days where there'd be certain information that was like, yeah, this isn't so bad. Everything was, not to our liking, but there were good days and bad days. I'm fascinated that every single day, Joe, there's nothing really good to report. I guess today's jobs number, is that a good number, the great job creation? But even then, you can't even really find anything really good in that. It just seems like a scam. And even the scammers on the Wall Street don't even believe it.
I mean, what? Wow. Right? Wow. I mean,
yeah.
Too good to be true. I don't know. I would, again, I understood the reason for seasonal adjustments back before computers. That made sense because, hey, we got to wait, everything's done by hand and in the mail, and then someone's got to enter it. And so, we need to, have some guesstimates, if you will. But Jason, this is the era. I mean, we're talking about digital currency and blockchain technology that says, hey, we're going to be able to do 10 billion transactions a second. There is no need to seasonally adjust anything. Now, of course, they've changed the answer to why they do it. So just so everybody knows, because, I want to give you both sides, because I know, obviously, when I say that, for most people, they're like, that's very logical. Why do we? We shouldn't have to. We should know exactly what right down to the last person, right? How many jobs were actually created in January? We should know the exact number. I mean, all you got to do, right, is look at W-2s. It's pretty simple. It's not that hard. But the Federal Reserve and the government say, well, you know what? Here's the problem. You know, January people get laid off. People that had seasonal work get let go. You know, blah, 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 blah. And we just want to smooth out the number. So we're not smart enough to know, hey, a negative, let's just say a negative 200,000 job report in January is a good number. We're not smart enough for that. Right? You're unintelligent enough that you can't figure this out. And let's face it, they add months in January and February. They take out jobs in November and December, right? Because we're not smart enough to figure out seasonal hiring. I mean, and again, it really is just nonsense. It just allows them to make numbers appear, much different than what they actually are. And when you get it wrong, you get crazy numbers like we got today. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. (800-951-0592) and Jason, I'm starting to get more details on the jobs number. So unadjusted is out now. Negative 2.5 million. So apparently the seasonal adjustment for January, just January, was 3 million jobs. That is a new, congratulations to the BLS. That's a new all-time record high, by the way. That is surpasses the previous all-time record high of 2.9 million. 3 million jobs seasonally adjusted. Also full-time and part-time work. So let me give you this one. Now, this is something, Jason's been making this argument for a long time. This is going to be from March 2022 to today, okay? After all these adjustments. In March of 2022, 132,587,000 workers were classified as full-time. Fast forward to today, 132,577,000. So let me read those numbers again. March, 132,587,000 full-time. January, 132,577. So that means they're saying that from March to January, we lost 10,000 full-time workers. Over that same 10 months, part-time work was 25,908,000, now at 27,400,000, an increase of essentially 1.5 million people working part-time.
Sounds like a lot more people working a lot more hours. That's what it sounds like, Joe.
Well, you know what? I wonder how many of these are 65 and older. That would be my guess. I bet the lion's share of the full-time worker, part-time worker is older people.
I'm wondering if it's straight across the board, Joe. I mean, I know some families that are having some tough times, and that they can't wait to get one of their kids working to help pay the bills. 18 years old, get on the workforce, Joe, get in there and pay the bill. I mean, normally, if the kid's not paying rent or he's going to school or something, he or she, you don't have to force that person into working. But I've seen more and more that's straight across the board. I would say from 18 to 75, even I guess 16 to 75. I think a lot of people, Joe, just working a lot of part-time jobs. Those numbers you put out there, I think those are about as real a numbers as I've heard on the show in a while.
Yeah, and again, I will get the age breakdown probably sometime next week. It'll come out, and when we do, we'll report that to see. You're probably right. It's probably across all, but I would expect still. We'll see. I think the biggest group is going to probably be that 65 and older group. That's just, let's face it, things cost more. Social Security's not enough.
I agree with that, actually. The people are not retiring at 65. It's just not happening. So, yeah, Joe. And we also have a very large older population. So that would make a lot of sense. But I think you'll see pretty strong numbers all straight across the whole age range. And I think you're right. The people in their 50s and 60s and even 70s would probably be higher.
Yeah, it's going to be. So, again, I don't know. It is what it is. Again, though, it's an opportunity, really. That's the way I look at this. This is not a great number for one more rate hike, right? That's not, it's not a good number, right? That signifies, hey, we put May back on the table. But here's the thing: we get 2 more inflation reports before the next Fed rate hike, before the next Fed meeting. That's going to be important. This number, which I think now, okay, you added 3 million. We lost 2.5 million jobs in January. That's what the unseasonal. Now, historically, I don't know. I don't have the context of it yet. That may be in line. That may be what January normally averages. I know this. They don't normally seasonally adjust at 3 million jobs. It's the biggest adjustment ever for the month. So that just kind of right doesn't give you that warm and fuzzy. But let's just say for a minute that this was a good number. Okay, let's go with that because I want it to be good. Who doesn't want it to be good, right? Let's have it be good. That means Jay Powell's little speech that he gave on Wednesday, with his little he said disinflation so many times that I mean, it was literally about every 90 seconds he said that word. Well, that's not true. Then that's a lie. I mean, it can't be both, right? You can't have a unemployment rate of 3.4%. You can't have job growth of 500,000 plus jobs, and somehow inflation goes down. I'm sorry, the world of economics doesn't work that way.
Well, he just wants to change it. Like last year, we had 2 negative GDP, but that wasn't a recession. And I think disinflation, mentioned 15,000 times, is he wants everyone looking at the CPI. And if that CPI drops the next 2 months, the disinflation, that's what I think. That's the only thing he's pushing at. Maybe, Joe, he knows that these numbers aren't going to go exactly the direction he needs to go to stopping rate hikes. So he has to focus on the one thing that actually says I can stop, and that would be the CPI going down. That's what I think, because that's disinflation. There's still inflation there. It's just less inflation, right?
I don't know. It's been a weird start to the year. You know what? This would say too. You know what? Houses should be selling like hotcakes, right? Because this says, hey, right here, the economy, we're charging here, right? And it's not. Car sales aren't. Credit card debt says no. I mean, I just it's a hard one. That this is going to be, like I said, this is why I'm telling you, man, if you're looking for a day to get in to go buy some today, be a buyer today, because this is a pullback. Before the number came out, gold was up before this number came out. So this was unexpected. This is a gift. I love it. Buying gold and silver for less. Who doesn't love that? 800-951-0592. Because I think we kind of know this is like Sesame Street. They got the 4 boxes. Which one doesn't belong? It's probably this jobs number. We'll be back. (800-951-0592). I still have some of the 20s, not very many, but I don't have very many to start with, at 2,095. And then I just got a deal here. How about this? U.S. Silver Eagles. Rolls of 20. $660 at 800-951-0592. So, Jason, 2 great items, a little gold, a little silver. Silver at $33. That's just a great opportunity.
Yeah, you keep in mind that premiums are still lower than they've been in the past few years. And so normally under that situation, we wouldn't be selling them for $660. So silver's taking a dip and gold took a dip. We got these silver eagles at $660. But if this was 2021, Joe, or 2022, you'd be looking at what? I know 700 what on these rolls, maybe even $800.
Well, right now premiums are down about $6. So instead of 33, they'd be 39. Right. So almost you'd be talking almost $800, right? Versus 660. So you know what? It's like a double win. We've got a pullback on a number that I think a lot of people are like, that number's a little sketchy. So maybe a little false pretense pullback. Then you throw reduced premiums on it. It's a double win.
I agree with that. It's a really, really good price. And you know, we were talking about debt and all these other things, Joe. I mean, if one thing should really make you uncomfortable, because I think there's a mentality with Americans, especially, but you know, hey, if you're barely making it, just getting the bills paid, everything's okay. We're comfortable. You know, we're just, you know, you should feel uncomfortable if you're not putting away savings. If you go through your calendar month or your 2-week pay period or however it is you get paid, if you are not putting a little bit of money aside every single paycheck or at least once a month into savings, you should feel very uncomfortable. If you're not saving, you're setting yourself up to end up on one of those guys that have the massive amounts of debt that they can barely pay. What would you say? 17 years minimum payments, Joe? That's a lot of interest going directly to the bank for nothing, just to give you the privilege of borrowing yourself into slavery. So if you're not putting, if you feel comfortable, things are going okay, but you're not saving anything, things are not okay. You have to be saving at all times. It's got to be pay yourself first, right, Joe?
Yeah, and that's the hardest part. But you know, again, Vanguard was out today. They're the largest 401k administrator. And we know, right, already people are pulling out of their 401s. And that just tells you that even with that, they just can't save any money. And again, it just, I guess maybe if you look at, hey, what type of work, it's part-time work, not full-time work, but you got an unemployment rate at like a 52-year low. I mean, something crazy like that really kind of says that, okay, that's all there is, right? You're working. This is it. This is all there is. And yet credit card balances are up 20%. This is all there is. And yet people are now, instead of adding to 401ks, are pulling money, and it's getting close to back to where, you know, go back to 08, 09, 2010, right? Starting to get to those type levels. You know, you look at housing at a stop, car sales at a stop. I mean, Ford's earnings today, not very good. Man, I just don't know.
Well, Joe, when you buy gold, you're saving for yourself. If you're one of those guys like, well, I'm saving, I got it in my 401k. Well, who are you saving for? I guess yourself a little bit, but you know, if you just try to pull that early, there's penalties. Usually there's fees all along the way that you're putting into 401ks. And then of course there's taxes on the back end. So, you get 401k, if that's your savings, who are you really saving for? I know, Joe, when someone buys gold, they're saving very specifically for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely here. I'll say this, Jason, you were talking earlier about a letter the Fed had penned in 1998. And
No,
it's
1918. 1918.
Oh, 1918. Sorry, I can't see that far. 19. So the Fed was created in 1913. So 5 years in, and they shared some things.
Yeah, let me read. We got a minute. We'll maybe even bleed this into the next hour because we don't have Glenn for the half empty cup of Joe. But check this out. There's only 3 paragraphs that really matter. But of the lines, I couldn't imagine the Fed even using this kind of strong language anymore. It's not even strong language. It's just much heftier than what they put out now. It's not disinflation or transitory. It says to the bank addressed. So they sent these letters all over the country. A number of the banks are continuing their cooperation in the matter of contracting gold into reserve. But a large majority apparently have come to the conclusion that either gold coin or gold certificates have become too scarce to warrant the trouble of calling the few that they find their way into their bank, or that the necessity for it no longer exists. So this is sort of a punishment letter. We want you to get that gold here, and we wanted to get that now. He's and they're basically saying, some of you feel it's unnecessary. And here comes the next paragraph. The necessity will continue until every dollar of gold, either coin or certificate, is possible to obtain and has been placed in reserve. Listen to this one. It is far more valuable to the government as a basis for credit than it is to the individual as circulation, and will continue to have this ratio of greater value to the government regardless of war or peace conditions. There's one more paragraph, Joe. It's astounding.
Hey, force them into fiat money is what that letter's telling the bank. We don't have any gold. You just have to take this piece of paper instead. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment on a Friday. Eight 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason wrapping it up on this Friday. Really interesting that they wrote that letter in 1918. Of course, they solved it, didn't they, in 1933, where they're like, you know what? Okay, we're done with that, right? We're just making it now. You can't have it. It's more valuable to the government than it is to the citizenry. And of course, look at all the central bank buying that's been going on, really for the last 15 years. Obviously, this year, the largest amount of central bank buying in, 50-something years, 55, 56 years occurring because it's more valuable to the government than the citizenry. I think not, but, I think it's valuable to both.
Gold was a competition for their brand new central bank system. So they needed, they were involved in a competition, a fight against gold, and the people of this country, the banks, the honest banks that were run back then didn't understand what's going on. Listen to this next paragraph. Listen how it gets so much worse, Joe. The federal, you just mentioned this coming out of the break about circulation. Federal Reserve notes are intended to take the place as circulation of gold coin and gold certification. They are the development of a scientific plan to meet the fluctuation of currency needs, being issued in sufficient quantities to meet the requirement at crop moving periods. And listen to this joke. And automatically retired as the demand decreases. But a reserve of gold equal to 40% of the Federal Reserve notes in circulation is required at all times. You must give us the gold, Joe.
Right. Yeah. See, here's the thing. There may be a time where you don't have enough gold, but we can print all the paper we want. Right. And look at what it's gotten us. Right. We got over $40 trillion of debt. We don't even talk about unfunded liabilities. We don't talk about any of that stuff. It's It's crazy. But again, this has always been the plan. And like I said, all fiat money. Listen, the Federal Reserve is getting ready to go to zero because we're getting a digital currency. They're going to retire it, right? It'll be worthless. It'll be worthless. Eventually, very soon, Jason, that ability to pay with Federal Reserve notes will go away because it is what it really is, which is just a piece of paper with some coloring on it and a design. That's all it is.
And think about the time frame and why the urgency of sending the banks these letters. This particular letter is 1918. Okay, World War I is coming to an end, right, Joe? And these soldiers are going to come back and want to cash in and get some gold. Because people actually wanted gold back then much more than they do in 2018 or 2023 where we're at today. So this urgency to get as much gold in and get as much competition out of the system was urgent. You can see it in the letter. Hey, you need to send us this stuff now. And then of course we went on into the Roaring 20s, right, Joe, where they gave out the free spending all over the place, and then right into the Depression where they just ended up killing the ability for an American to own gold legally. I mean, it was planned out so perfectly.
Perfect textbook. This was the Great Depression. It wasn't an accident. It was by design. And I think we're getting ready. We're going to have another. This is what happened when you want to change the currency. You need that economic event, that crisis. And think about it. They created the Roaring 20s. They just did it in a couple of years called COVID. And now the crisis is what's coming next. 800-951-0592. Did that Chinese balloon take Glenn Tate?